beautiful humans. Thank you for checking out this inaugural episode of the First and Tuna podcast. My name is Pierce, better known as Big Tuna himself. And if you're joining us today, I appreciate you. You know who I appreciate even more though? All my followers that gave me support and honestly the confidence to even launch this channel. Thank you. Would not be here without you guys. So, that being said, what are we even doing on this channel? We're talking about NFL football. We're based here in Northern California. We're in the heart of the Central Valley. And my goal as your modern day local radio show host is to talk about your favorite teams. By favorite teams, we mean 49ers, Raiders, Rams, and Chargers. I want this to be a place where you can come every single week and have your favorite teams talked about primarily. We'll cover some of the big topics that happen throughout the year around the league, like Tyreek Hill is amazing. Why do they call him Cheetah? He's fast as hell. He's awesome to watch. What are the ramifications of Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles 4 plays into his Jets debut? I kind of laugh, but man, is that terrible. We'll cover things like that, but the focus here will be those 4 teams, I promise you. So whether you're looking for game recaps of these local teams, game previews, things to look for, whether you're an expert at the sport and you've been watching all your life like I have, or you're a newcomer just trying to learn a little bit more and you're a follower of mine. I'm hoping that this channel helps you appreciate the sport a little bit more. That's my goal. I love the sport a lot, and I want to share that love with you guys by teaching a little bit and hopefully being your source of information week in and week out. So, that being said, why are we doing this? I won't talk too long about this because we have a lot to get to into week 1, but I felt it was important to kind of explain how we even got here. So, being a Rams fan, as you can clearly see if you're watching on YouTube, here in Northern California, there's not a lot of us up here. We're mostly 49ers and mostly Raiders fans. Gets a little bit, I don't want to say lonely, but you do appreciate that rivalry a lot, but you miss a little bit out on that community, that camaraderie of rooting for the same team with a lot of other people. It's part of the sport. It makes it really exciting. And I started thinking like, man, there's got to be other people out there like me that just want a place to go to on the local level, a channel, a community, to just talk about their favorite team a little bit more in depth. Especially like if you're a fan of the Chargers, outside of some big games, your team doesn't get talked about a whole lot on a national media level. But maybe we can do that for you a little bit more here on First and Tuna. So what qualifies me to do so? Obviously, I'm not experienced podcaster, as you can tell by my ums and uncertainty. But like I said, I've been watching football all my life. I was blessed enough to play a little bit in high school and collegiately for like a year and 1 game. Shout out Humboldt State Lumberjacks. But honestly, I just love the sport. I pay attention a little bit, way too much about it. And this place isn't really going to be, fantasy relevant, but really a down-to-earth analysis on, your teams, things to look for, and most likely a little bit of smack talk. We'll have some guests on to break down some games, share some experiences, and just talk about the sport in general. But that's it. That's the background. Nothing crazy. I just want to be your local radio show host and talk about football every single week. So if you're cool with that, I think 3 to 4 minutes into the show was enough of an intro. So let's just get right into it. So part of the show every single week is we are going to break down some of the box scores. I'm not going to sit here and go through every single game. Like I said, this is not ESPN. Highlighting our 4 teams, but then also some key narratives that even if it's a outside California team, but something to look for or something that was exciting as part of the weekly slate. One of the first games, obviously, 49ers taking over Pittsburgh and just obliterating the Steelers. That's in and of itself. They were just in playoff form, and it sickens me to say that as a self-proclaimed number 1 49ers hater, because man, do they look good. They are fun to watch too. Deebo Samuel is probably one of my favorite players in the league, and it sucks when he does what he does against the Rams. But One of the players of that game was Brandon Ayuk, one of the other wide receivers for the Niners. He was perfect. He had 8 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just embarrassed Patrick Peterson, who was talking some smack the week before. Something about an interview saying he knows the play calls for the 49ers, and he'll show you when he gets an interception. Both of Brandon Ayuk's touchdowns were on Patrick Peterson. So sometimes you got to be careful before you talk shit. So some of our other slate, Saints and Titans. I highlighted this game because I am genuinely curious. If you're a Raiders fan, please comment below on YouTube and let me know, how do you guys feel about Derek Carr? And how do you feel about Derek Carr potentially being successful outside of being a Raiders quarterback? And if you haven't been following, you don't know, Derek Carr, now the New Orleans Saints quarterback, was the Oakland and Las Vegas Raiders longtime quarterback for I think 9 years, right? 9 or 10 years. And brought them some success, some stability, and then was somewhat unceremoniously let go to where now he's on the Saints. I'm curious, how do you guys think about him? Are you rooting for him? Do you hope he fails because he didn't win a Super Bowl here for the Raiders? That being said, his game was it was ugly. It was a 16-15 win over the Titans. The last throw that he had down the field to seal the game for them was exciting if you saw that post game. Besides that, kind of a snoozer. Rams 30, Seahawks 13. As you can tell, I'm very excited about that. That was the upset of the week. Nobody really picked the Rams to win that. There's a lot of negative narratives that went into, or that have been going into, the Rams this season. We are going to save that for next episode. Next week is going to be kind of my selfish deep dive on the Rams narratives this season. And then last one, Chargers. Man, Chargers make a habit out of losing close games. Lose by less than a field goal. They had the ball with less than 2 minutes left and a chance to go win it, but lack of protection at the end. Had Justin Herbert getting sacked twice in that last possession. Didn't really have a chance. But my big takeaway from that game is going to be about Tyreek Hill. And so without further ado, I do want to get into these games individually. So like I said, if you're following along on YouTube, it's going to be a little bit more interactive for you. This is the nicest I'll talk about the 49ers all year long. I want to start off on a good note. First one, damn were the Niners dominant. And I seriously hate how fun they are to watch. It makes me sick. Honestly, so 30-7, and the game was over, I'd say second drive. Before even halfway through the first quarter. First drive, some of my notes from that game, Kenny Pickett had 0 time to throw from the get-go. Their first drive, he got sacked on third down by Jackson. End of the drive, Niners go down and score. Brock Purdy making it look easy to Brandon Ayuk on Patrick Peterson. And then second drive for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett he gets some pressure in his face, led by Bosa, and he just throws up this ugly pass down the field that was basically a punt return for the Niners. Like it looked like they were playing 2 different sports. Niners were playing at 100 miles an hour. Pittsburgh looked like they're in mud. My takeaway for any random Steelers fans out there, what is it about last year or this offseason that gave Pittsburgh the confidence to bring back offensive coordinator Matt Canada? Because there was nothing that I saw last year that warranted him having that job. And as what we saw yesterday, same thing. They looked unprepared. That play calling was atrocious. They had 0 run game. And just Kenny Pickett looked like he was not deserving of a first-round pick. And I don't think that's a blight on him. I think that's more of coaching on that end. I'm very curious of what Tomlin's going to do moving forward, and we'll see. But my takeaways from the Niners game, first and foremost, like I said, defense is stifling. I think they're the number 1 defense in the league. Some people will argue right now about Philadelphia and Dallas. The reason why I say San Francisco is because I see them play my team twice a year. I'm a little bit more familiar with them. And when you have some guys that just fly 100 miles an hour, like Fred Warner, the inside linebacker for the Niners, and then Nick Bosa, defensive end for the Niners, if you're looking for a reason to follow San Francisco and who to look for when you're watching these games as a new football watcher, Look for 54 in the middle of that Niners defense. That dude is a killer. He flies around, hits people. His hit on Najee Harris, as you can see on the screen, that was straight out of Madden. That was a hit stick. I don't know how he stayed in the game after that. A big thing I want to talk about for the 49ers, though, and this is going to be something I follow all year long, something that gets talked about week in and week out is Brock Purdy, their quarterback. So if you hear people call him Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. Irrelevant means when he was drafted, he was the very last person to get drafted. That means through 7 rounds, all 32 teams each round, he was the very last person to get picked. That means there wasn't a lot of expectations coming from him. He wasn't expected to play right away, if at all. He came in last year as a backup and has never looked back, and he doesn't seem to be anything but a franchise quarterback for the 49ers. Now, that being said, a lot of people hate on him simply because he's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Joe Burrow. These are, clear-cut stars in the league where they have all the raw talent to make every throw. Because Brock Purdy is a little bit smaller and Shanahan's offense gets called very friendly for quarterbacks to be placed in the system, people are a little bit hesitant to call him a great quarterback. I'll call him a great quarterback because no matter what, it's not easy to play that position as a professional. And even though you don't need to be the most athletic, the most talented in a 49ers offense at quarterback, you got to be the smartest on the field. What I see from Shanahan's offense is if you can be the smartest on the field, and if you can put your ego aside and just trust the system and get your athletes the ball and let them win the game for you, they can win a Super Bowl with damn near everybody. But Brock Purdy does that role better than anybody else so far. And for that, I'll call him a great quarterback. It's going to be very interesting since he is young. This is his second year. I'll be, I think, 9th or maybe 10th game. I'll be interested to see how he does moving forward. So if you're looking for a narrative to follow for the 49ers, follow number 13 and see how he does. What the headlines will be the next day is how well or bad he does. Honestly, they're going to be looking at it through a microscope, honestly. With the O-line for the 49ers, I have kind of two sides of the coin. The run game was dominant. They have Christian McCaffrey, probably best running back in the game, over 22 carries, 150 plus yards. He looked incredible. Brock Purdy was under pressure more than was anticipated, though. So because it's week 1, either there's some issues on the 49ers O-line in terms of pass blocking, or this is just a symptom of playing against TJ Watt. TJ Watt is a top 3 defender in the league, a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. So we'll see. We'll see how he does in their game next week, or how the O-line will do in the game next week. But I think that's just something to look forward to as a potential weak link for the 49ers. Next game on the slate, one that I'm extremely excited to talk about for obvious reasons. Rams 30, Seahawks 13. Takeaways from this one. I'm actually not going to spend too much time on LA just because we're going to talk about them a little bit more along with the 49ers at the end of the show as well as next week. But every single point I took from this game for LA was combating some of the narratives coming into this year. First one, better O-line than last year. I'd say we had the worst offensive line, and in this game, Matt Stafford stayed up. He stayed clean. He had time to throw, and because of that, I'm a firm believer in the Matthew Stafford revenge tour this year. I think he'll have for over 4,500 passing yards. He looked great. He looked like he did 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl, and that's without starting receiver Cooper Kupp. He was able to feed a rookie and another guy who was only 5'8", a receiver, over 16 receptions between those two, and they looked great. The rookies were hungry. Like I said, rookie wide receiver Puka Nacua, he had 10 catches for 116 yards and looked incredible. But on the defensive side, between the linebacker Young and some of the DBs that are either rookies or only have 1 year experience, this is going to be a huge point for the Rams going forward because their roster dynamic's a little bit weird. Normally you have a sprinkling of some rookies and young guys for the youth and the talent with some veteran leadership. Over half of the Rams roster has less than 2 years of pro experience, with 19 of those guys being rookies. So what that means is there's room for a lot of mistakes to potentially happen. That's not normally a recipe for success, but yesterday they showed a little bit of youthful ignorance and not backing down to the challenge and not being afraid of anybody on that Seattle offense, to where our own DK shut down DK Metcalf in the second half. And outside of a few mental errors early in the game, that defense played lights out in the second half, which is why we got a 17-point victory. And then my biggest weak link, honestly, is the run defense. If Seattle had stuck with it, that outside run was killing us, and that comes from the youthfulness. The linebacker core is very young. They're not high draft picks either, so there may be a potential mismatch in talent to where they don't set the edge very well. So for the inexperienced, setting the edge means if you're a defensive lineman, if you're an outside linebacker on defense, you typically don't want to allow a runner to get outside of you. Reason being is because you don't have as much help to tackle guys on the outside. But if you can set the edge and close off that boundary and make a running back, make a quarterback run inside instead, obviously that's where more of your teammates are to make tackles and make stops. So they had some success with that in the first half. I don't know why Seattle went away from it in the second half, but that is a weak link for LA that I'm not super excited about seeing how it could be exposed next week. Raiders won their first game. Happy day in Las Vegas. Happy debut for Jimmy Garoppolo. What's going to be really interesting for me is, as you can see in my takeaway on YouTube here, Jimmy G knows how to win 17 to 16 games. Before, the 49ers were, obviously extremely dominant with the talent of roster around him. Jimmy G is never going to throw for 400, 500 yards. He's not going to completely take over a game. He's what we call a game manager. And he knows how to win these ugly games. So you got that Jimmy G experience. Again, Vegas, very curious how you guys feel about this transition of power, having Garoppolo versus Carr and winning an ugly game like this. The game was not super exciting from the outside perspective of a non-Vegas fan. It was a little bit boring for most parts. It did seem like two teams trying to figure it out. Obviously, the Broncos have a new head coach, new system, and their year last year was forgettable, so they're starting brand new from 2 years ago. And in Vegas, obviously, they're still getting used to Coach McDaniels and with the new quarterback in place. There's some weird stuff going on behind the scenes there in Vegas, too. I'm interested to see what kind of drama pops out this year. I don't know why, but one of my key takeaways from this game was Jacobs wearing number 8. I somehow missed that with all his contract drama over the offseason, that I didn't realize he he changed jersey numbers. I don't know why. It bugged me all game. I was going back, rewatching the game, and taking notes. It bothered me he was wearing number 8. I just wasn't unprepared for that. Even into the fourth quarter, I'm like, is that Jacobs? Like, it's just confusing to me. And then the last one, the defense. I'm a little concerned for Vegas. They only held Denver to 16 points, but how much of that is Russell Wilson and Broncos being inept and figuring things out? Or do they have a good defense? Really do not know. I'm curious to see that going forward. But hey, we're 1-0 and on top of the AFC West. Congratulations, Raiders. And last but not least, the renters of SoFi Stadium, LA's little brother Chargers. Man, this was the game of the week. This was super exciting, high-flying. Tyreek Hill had over 200 yards receiving, which is just unreal numbers for a wide receiver, even in today's standards. Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins quarterback, he was phenomenal. He played the best game of his career so far. But focusing on the Chargers, man, some good things I'll take away. You guys have a balanced offense. Offensive line came ready to play. If you look at the stat lines for the box scores, very balanced offense, rushing and passing. You gave up too many sacks, especially at the end. But overall, it was a good game from the offense. some fantasy relevancy in that backfield. Austin Eckler gave up basically half of the game to Joshua Kelly. They split carries. A lot of stats that Eckler's typically just shouldering himself, and it looks like he's got a little bit of a potential ankle injury. I could be mistaken in that extremity. I know it's a leg. I'm guessing ankle, but something to look forward to. He didn't really come out of the game, but he just didn't seem to be 100% coming out of that game. A big thing for the Chargers that I will be very interested in seeing moving forward the rest of the year is how they're able to close out these close games. So in today's league, if you have a competent quarterback, if you have the ball with less than 2 minutes, odds are in your favor that you can close out the game and get a field goal to win or a touchdown to win the game. This league is based on offense. Chargers have a great franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert that people believe in. Very talented offense. They had the ball with less than 2 minutes. Very capable of going down and getting a field goal to win a game. And this just seems to be a repeat of last year where they make mental errors and they don't close out games. So their Coach Staley is under the hot seat a little bit. It seems like around the league from what I'm hearing from sources like ESPN and stuff like that. So I'll be very curious to see if they continue to lose close games, if he has a head coaching spot through the end of the year. But all that being said, all these negatives, it's hard to hard press any team after just 1 week, because week 1 is like a lot of figuring things out. And then especially with this game in particular, with how Tyreek Hill played for the Dolphins, Chargers might get a pass because Tyreek Hill is going to put up unreal numbers like he's not human. If you don't know Tyreek Hill, people call him Cheetah for a reason. And yeah, Chargers might get a pass for this. We'll see how they handle next week. And so now let's look ahead to week 2. I'm not going to break down every single game. If you're following on YouTube, let's pop up my predictions right now for week 2. At the top of the screen it says season-long pick 'em bet week 2 predictions. So I'm gonna let you guys in on a season-long prop bet that I've got with my friend and follower of the show, Malik. We're picking every single game, every single week, all season long, and tracking our records. As you can see on the screen, I went 11-5 last week. He went 10-6. Both a great week of picking. But caveat: loser with the worst record at the end of the year has to buy the winner a brand new jersey. So I'm just going to thank Malik ahead of time. Thank you for the brand new Aaron Donald jersey. I appreciate you, friend. Thank you. My picks are selected with the little tuna next to it. That being said, locally, you got the Raiders going to Buffalo. My prediction on that one is it's not going to be pretty for the Raiders. I think the Bills are going to be a little pissed off from last week. I expect a wood chipper for the Vegas Raiders. Sorry, guys. Chargers at Titans. I have the Chargers winning. Same thing. I think the Titans are an awful team outside of the coach and Derrick Henry. I think the Chargers will hang 30 on them easily. Game of the week and lock of the week, without further ado, it's obvious. It's 49ers at the Rams. I gotta be honest, man. This game makes me very nervous. All those positive things I was talking about San Francisco, they're bringing all that stuff into week 2 against my favorite team, and it's going to be very interesting how it holds up. My prediction is it's going to be either a blowout by the Niners by 21 or a close squeaker by the Rams. So my lock of the week is the upset by the LA Rams. Some of my pointers for this one is for the Rams, keep Stafford clean. The narrative, like I said, coming into this year was how good is the O-line? Is it improved? Can they keep Stafford healthy since he was injured last year? If you're not familiar with football, but you're going to be watching this game, what I would pay attention to is for the Rams quarterback number 9, how often is he on his ass? That will tell you right away how the game's going and who's going to win. If Matthew Stafford has time and he's able to pass and run his offense, it's going to be a close game. If he has 0 time, he's throwing early picks because he's constantly getting knocked down and people are in his face, it's going to be a long night for LA. That's the number one role. Nothing else matters in the game for the Rams, honestly, besides that fact right there. First point for the 49ers. This is based on the weakness I talked about for the Rams earlier. Let CMC spin. Christian McCaffrey's nickname is Run CMC for a reason. This kid is just phenomenal, and I feel old the fact that I just called him kid. Wow. But honestly, I think just don't abandon the run game. I expect some good surprises from the Rams DBs. So if our weak link is running defense and their strength is rush offense, just run the ball. I expect them to pound the ball over 30 times this game. That's a huge weakness for the Rams defense. Second point for the Rams, it seems really weird to type this out, but if you watch enough of these games the last few years with this rivalry, a huge sticking point for us in LA is tackling. I shit you not. Because the 49ers are extremely talented at every position on offense, primarily Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are wizards at breaking tackles. They will make you look stupid. His name is Deebo for a reason. He will punk the entire defense. So if the Rams can keep a level head and make solid open field tackles and limit yak yards after the catch, for those who don't know, keep the game in front of them, keep it a close game. And then on top of that, honestly, because of our youthfulness on the D-line and on the defense for the Rams, I think the 49ers just double and triple team Aaron Donald, our best player on the field. I think they'll have a good time keeping Brock Purdy protected. It's as simple as that. So with that being said, I do predict an LA Rams win. Sorry, 49ers fans. Told you I'm a Niners hater. I can't root against my own team. So that's my predictions for this week. So I think that's been a long enough episode for you guys. First dose of First and Tuna. I'm hoping to be in a great mood after the Rams game next week. Hoping I don't embarrass myself with this pick. But that being said, thank you for listening. This has been my recap of the games. I'm looking forward to breaking down week 2 with you guys next week. Our deep dive next week is going to be, like I said, there's been some off-season narratives for the LA Rams. I do want to break down what they mean for us as a season and how they look after 2 weeks. Because after 1 week, looks like all those narratives are wrong. We'll see what happens after week 2. We'll have a better idea. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. So if you're looking to become a fan of the LA Rams, you'll get to understand the team a little bit more, deeper than just, like I said, stats and numbers. There's a human element, and I really want to explore that a little bit. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys. If you have a certain topic you want me to deep dive on in the coming episodes, please comment, talk about it below. I'd appreciate it. Or you can follow us on Instagram and leave us a DM there. So, till next week, appreciate you guys.